Hey, what's up guys? I plan to go over the patch notes in a later video, but something struck me as being very interesting while I was looking over the notes, and I wanted to talk about those real quick. I have a lot of questions, but if it's handled how I think it might be, this might be extremely good for the game. This is all centered around AI behavior improvements they're bringing to patch 12.7. According to the patch notes, bots will pick up items now. They'll have improved behavior when they see dead bodies. They'll pick up a second firearm from those dead bodies, and they'll even have a bunch of other general improvements to the way they handle combat situations, and they'll do things like eating and checking mags when not in combat. A lot of that stuff is interesting, and I wonder if it's going to make it much more difficult to tell the difference between AI scavs and player scavs. Right now, if a scav has a second gun on their back, you can pretty much be certain they're a player, but this won't be a thing anymore. I love when they update the AI like this. I was just talking to chat the other day on my Twitch stream about how I wish AI scavs would loot dead bodies like the AI stalkers did in the third Stalker game. That was always very interesting to me as it really humanized them, made the game feel more immersive, and added some complications for the player, which is really what I want to discuss today. See, the patch notes aren't completely clear. It says they'll pick up a second weapon from dead bodies, and it says they can pick up items now, but it doesn't overtly say they'll loot dead bodies beyond simply picking up a second weapon. So what I want to know is, are the scavs going to pick up loose items laying on the ground and tables and stuff, or are they actually going to loot a dead body for all of their loot, just like a player might? Are they also going to loot boxes and buried stashes too? Honestly, I really hope they do. It'll make hunting down scavs way more rewarding, and it'll make loot feel much more dynamic in the game, as there will be no guarantees good loot will be where you think it is, especially as the match stretches on. A bigger question I have though is what happens if a scav picks up a weapon or other gear from your dead body? As in, if that gear is insured, are you going to still get it back in insurance, or does the scav own it now and you won't get it back? I really hope it's the latter. If you saw my latest video about insurance fraud, you'll know that I really hate how objectively profitable insurance is. Basically, unless you're going to labs, you would be an idiot not to insure absolutely everything you bring into your raids. You only spend somewhere between 5 to 15% of the item's value on insurance, which means at worst, if you get your items back just 1 in 6 raids, it's profitable to purchase insurance, and you always will, so it's always profitable to do it in the long term. The bigger problem with insurance though is that it means that 100% of the gear a dead player brought into the game is going to another player right now. Either it'll go to the player who loots them, or it'll come back to the original player who paid to insure it. And there's loopholes like insurance fraud where you can dump your gear into a bush where it's extremely unlikely to be found, pretty much guaranteeing it'll be returned to you insurance. This has huge repercussions to the game's economy, as it pretty much means gear is never lost to the player base as a whole, but new gear is constantly being generated in-game every raid, leading to the swift accumulation of wealth with no mechanisms to really lose it, which is a huge contributing factor to why the game's meta gets so stale so quickly. It's because a huge portion of the player base gets filthy rich extremely quickly. But if bots can now scavenge your gear, and if they do so successfully, you do not get that gear back in insurance, this would potentially be a huge step forward towards balancing the economy. It wouldn't be enough on its own, but it would definitely help. Of course, this is just conjecture at this point, but I really hope it either works this way now, or they'll add this later on to a future patch. A lot of the times I see certain game mechanics that I think cause a lot of problems to the game, and not being a game developer myself, I don't always have good creative solutions to the problem, so I usually just call for the game mechanic to be removed, like with the flea market or earlier on with the secure container or whatever. But stuff like this I think creatively helps solve some of these problems, and it does it in a much more natural way that feels like it adds to the game as a whole while solving these problems rather than just taking it away from the game. They did a similar thing with the found and raid stuff, which I think had a very good effect of solving the hatchling problem. You still find hatchlings in the game, but now at least if a hatchling wants to get filthy rich off the flea market, they have to actually survive their raids and extract, and they can't even just sprint to the loot and then to the extract. They have to actually stick around for at least 10 minutes, increasing the chances that they get killed. I plan to go over the patch notes in more detail later, so don't forget to like and subscribe, and come bring these conversations over on my Twitch channel where I go live multiple times a week. And if you're looking for people to play with, I've got over 1,000 Tarkov players in my Discord server, so come join and team up. All of my links are in the description below, so we'll see you next time, guys.